and welcome back. Well, the illegal block parties continue, and it's not just that, of course, but they are attacking the police. So as we see here from the Metro, and for the third night in a row, bottles lobbed at police during third night of illegal London block parties. Clashes erupted between revellers and police during a third consecutive night of unlicensed street parties in London. And I think putting them down as street parties or block parties is definitely a littered, if you will, given that the culture behind what goes on at the ravings, the kind of culture and music and things that are lifted up and portrayed within these parties and portrayed in the music as well, is really what creates an enemy of the police. And I'll show you the minute-long clip they have here to show, of course, the types of people that are at the parties, and then also the types of music and the words that they are saying or rapping that they're trying to get their message across. So as we see, and as I'm sure you're already well aware of, the gang culture ideas and being on the run from the police or hating the police or killing each other, protecting your street cred is what a lot of these people are going on about. And that's why we see, unfortunately, that it is its own monoculture within London. It isn't multiculturalism, it isn't diversity, it is instead a very strong monoculture which has no respect for the police, the rule of law, or community cohesion in a civilized society. Instead, it is just might is right and defend what you have with weapons and respond to words with violence and the kind of things which, of course, has no place in a civilized society and cannot be used to build a civilized society. And you can look at more warring regions and tribal mentalities across the world, particularly in continental Africa, of course, and see just how badly that they've done there and why it's a third world continent, because if they're propagating those ideas, of course, they're not going to get anywhere in life in the grander scheme of things. And if you constantly think that the world is out to get you and enemies are everywhere and you can't trust anybody, then you're not going to amount to anything either, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy that whether you like it or not, you do need to interact with other people in order to get ahead in life. I mean, even if you're just a hermit and very intelligent in your own right, if you don't have the communication skills and you can't explain it to people and get people on your side, then you're not going to be able to really amount to anything because you can't tell anything to anybody else. And that's really the best case scenario. I'm going on in a hermit idea, but instead, of course, you've got people who are far more aggressive and think that they're entitled to particular things. And as I'm sure you're also aware, that a lot of these people will think, well, the police are always out to get us, and it's not fair, and it's racial profiling. And then you go, well, what are you doing about it? Why do you have a face tattoo with thug life? Why are you aggressive to the police in the first instance, despite having no previous encounters with them? Do you think maybe that has more to do with why the police would perhaps have a negative interaction with you than police being racist? Do you think there's anything to do with it? Then, of course, what gets people to feel this way in the first place? Well, that's going to be single-parent households or broken homes, really, looking for a male role model, and black fathers matter. And if they don't have those fathers, then instead they're going to go for something that is more male in terms of gangs in order to get the accreditation from other members of their society, from their peers, and that leads to destruction before too long. And of course, you do have some people who try to point it out, like the ex-Met police chief, Kevin Hurley, on his Sky News interview, and then he was cut off by Adam Bolton. So, what was it that he said that got him cut off? Well, So as we see, he's trying to point out again, broken homes, and then if you've got the culture that propagates the idea that police are out to get black people, then of course black people aren't going to be communicative with the police. And then the police being people too, they understand that then they'd have to go into a troubled neighborhood to people who don't respect them. Nobody's going to help them. It's going to make their life even more difficult. And then, of course, you've got the politicians and the chattering elites from their ivory towers saying that, oh yes, the black people, it's the victim narrative and the police are always out to get them, in which case they can't do anything right, and therefore we've got to make things more difficult for the police so that we can be seen to be doing something, and therefore the police's jobs are even more difficult, and they don't want to, as he says, risk their lives, careers, or mortgages, because if they do try to do something in those neighborhoods, either they're going to get attacked, injured, as we see from, of course, in Brixton, from Wednesday night, you've got 22 officers injured, and over the past 3 weeks, 140 police officers injured. And then, of course, from Jordan Walker Brown, the video I've made recently, the career criminal who was then tasered and fell and was paralysed, that, of course, now those officers are on the chopping block as well, that if you do your job right, then you might either get attacked by the people that you're trying to protect and the communities you're trying to police, in which case it's a bit dangerous, but worse than that, you're then going to have to face the backlash from the political side of things, and they're going to label you as racist for doing your job, because, oh, you've gone into this black neighborhood and you've picked out a black person. So, yes, but they are a criminal, and they're currently resisting arrest or on the run, and we don't know who else they're going to injure in that time, or who they're going to take hostage, and how badly it's going to get out of control, in which case we need to control the situation, and now your job's at risk. And that's why, as Kevin Hurley says, that the police will just give up. So, well, sure, it might not be a dedicated no-go zone, but it essentially is for the police, because it's really not worth the risk. They're not going to be revered if they then try to bring law and order to the communities. Instead, they're going to be prosecuted and fired, and they're not going to get a job anywhere else because they're going to be branded as racist and detrimental to any company that would try to hire them. And of course, then they're going to be smeared as well if they try to do their own thing because of social media. And the only positive out of this is that, yes, you have actually got somebody speaking up, and then he was, of course, cut off, which Adam Bolton is trying to say, oh, we're very cut for time, it's a very rigid time schedule, and as he says that, when he says, why did you cut them off? I didn't. We're subject to automatic cut-offs for ad breaks, half hours, top of the hour, and even the weather. We aim to give all the guests the time to have their say and normally succeed, except when it runs counter to your point. There have been incidents of bad crowd behaviour by all sorts of people around the UK, not just those singled out by Kevin Hurley. Correct, but he's talking about how it is the black community, Afro-Caribbean community, are really misrepresented, or overrepresented, if you will, in these statistics, and not just crowd behaviour, but when you have the mob mentality behind them as well, especially in the street parties, when they're talking about fuck the police and shootings and guns and all that, that of course you've got people in mob mentality, and then they're having those thoughts reinforced, and they're going to act on them because they think that is what the people around them want them to do as well, and that is where they've got their sense of purpose from, because they haven't got a father to instill discipline and saying if you work hard you can get ahead in life. So of course they follow what the crowd says. But the response from Twitter, of course, some people not liking it, hardly a surprise, but we have actually got some people who aren't banned from Twitter, what a shocker, who can say that he's 100% correct. The parents should take responsibility for raising their children, not leave it to the taxpayer, and others saying that I was interested in hearing what he has to say. I don't know if Kevin Hurley has a social media account, but if he does, perhaps he could finish his thoughts on the subject. And at this point, I'm supposed to say, go over to Parler. If you're happy to use your mobile number for confirmation, go over to Parler. But that's it for now. So until next time, maybe we can find somebody else who wishes to speak up and say the unfortunate truths, if you will. And as always, have a good one.